Listen, cuties, I'm mad. Okay? I'm mad. You wanna know why I'm mad? Are you sure? Are you sure you wanna know? Okay, fine. Did you know this book is 600 pages? Yeah, neither did I, but I read it anyways. Hey cuties, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing my very first book analysis. This could either go horribly right or horribly wrong. So stay tuned to find out. I'm organizing this video in 4 categories. This video is going to be organized into 4 sections. We are first going to do a summary of the book, the best summary we can because
it's a lot.
And then we're going to go into the character analysis. Right? We're going to go into character analysis, then a writing analysis, and then we're going to end with final thoughts. Okay, one more thing. I wanted to address the background. It's different, obviously. I am currently back home in Pennsylvania for winter break, and the only quiet place to film in my house is in the basement at 11:30 at night. I thought about maybe putting up a blanket or something behind me, make it look a bit nicer, but then I kind of realized that this makes me look like I'm in jail or something, and that's exactly where this book belongs. So I thought it was very I'm sorry, that was so mean. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into the summary of After by Anna Todd. So we start off with the prologue, which introduces us to Tessa Young. Well, kind of introduces us to Tessa Young. It essentially reads like a letter that she's written or something after the events of the novel. It talks about how education is so important to her and how she thought college was going to be one way, but it ended up being a totally different way due to someone she met and her heart was never the same afterwards, blah, 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 blah. I thought the whole thing was pretty unnecessary. It did feel very Wattpad-esque. If I was an editor, I probably would have cut it. With all that being said, there was one line to come out of it that I thought was pretty accurate, and that is, we lived in a time where people asked which school you went to before asking your last name. I feel like that's pretty relatable. So Tessa moves into college with her perfectly vanilla boyfriend, Noah, and her strict conservative mother, who I forgot the name of. Plot twist though, she moves in and her roommate, Steph, is a baddie. She's dressed in very revealing clothes. She has piercings, tattoos, colored hair. Tessa's boyfriend is staring at her boobs. Tessa yells at him to quit staring at her boobs. Her mother is completely appalled.
Obviously.
There's really nothing they can do, so they say their goodbyes and Tessa's moved into college. A big girl. Later that evening, Tessa goes to shower in the co-ed bathrooms because of course they're co-ed. Because of course they are. And for some reason, after her shower, she has to return to her room in her towel. I don't remember why. You'll never believe who's sitting in her room. Hardin Scott. So this is our first introduction into the wonderful character of Hardin Scott. He's pretty cold and he ignores Tessa. He's also a bit degrading. Oh, and he of course wears all black and has a lot of piercings. I mean,
who does that? Right.
This encounter leads Tessa to want to prove to Hardin that she's not a prude, and she decides to go to a party with Steph and Hardin, which goes as well as you'd imagine. Everyone there, according to Tessa, is a heathen, and they both actively and passively make fun of her, which obviously makes her very uncomfortable, more uncomfortable than she already is, because she's never been to a party before, of course, because she's just a good little Christian girl. So she eventually goes to find some privacy because she doesn't want to be around these people anymore, and instead walks into Hardin getting freaky with some girl. Oh, by the way, another thing I forgot to mention, this book is very explicit, and I don't think certain terms are allowed to be said according to YouTube guidelines. I don't know, but just in case, I'm going to be using alternative words instead of the explicit words. Okay, so bear with me. He's getting freaky. Steph, her roommate, who invited her to the party, is super drunk at this point. So Tessa helps her find a room for them to stay in, and in this room has Tessa? That's their ship name. Oh my gosh, Tessa! This is where she spots a bookshelf, which has the book Wuthering Heights on it. And being the little innocent book nerd she is, she picks it up and starts reading it, and you'll never believe who the book belongs to. Any guesses? I'll give you 5 seconds to leave a comment. it's Hardin's book. And of course he's not too happy about it because he's a jerk. So he kicks them out of his room, and Tessa wonders how a rude, disrespectful, tattooed jerk like him could possibly enjoy those amazing works. I don't know, there's just something about describing classic literature as amazing and nothing else. Amazing's just so bland and generic. Fast forward, Monday rolls around and it's Tessa's first day of class. So of course she arrives early, and there's only one other person there whose name is Landon, and she happens to befriend this person because if he's early, she's early. That must mean that they're both nerds, you know, because if you're early, you're a nerd. I don't make the rules. Comes to the final class of the day, her literature class, her most beloved class, because she's just a little book nerd. And of course, you'll never believe who's sitting in her lit class. Go ahead, guess. Go ahead, guess. I'll give you 5 seconds. It's Hardin. So I want to take a moment to talk about this literature class real quick because I found it slightly comical. I have a bachelor's in English literature, and reading about this class, speaking from my personal experience, it just wasn't accurate. So I had to suspend my disbelief. I have a bachelor's in English literature. For the most part, it kind of just reads as a book club. They don't really discuss anything with depth. They just talk about love and who did you want to be together and I love them together, and you can mention that in a lit class. Obviously that's going to come up, but you're going to talk about the historical context and the social context, and then Hardin, being Hardin, makes this comment to Tessa: if Elizabeth had any sense, she would have told him to F off from the beginning. To which I commented in my notes, she kinda did though. Fast forward again, Tessa's at another party with Steph, even though the last one went horribly wrong and she hated it.
But she went to another one.
Everyone there is playing Truth or Dare because when they ask Tessa truth or dare, she chooses truth, and this is when everyone finds out that our sweet little Tessa is a virgin. So of course she feels embarrassed and she decides to deal with it all by drinking for the first time ever. Next thing you know, the girl's a little drunk. I've been there before. This one's for you, Tessa. Cheers. Obviously Tessa can't go anywhere because she's drunk, so she finds a room to stay in this frat house. But in this room is another drunk guy, and she decides to stay in this room with him alone. Tessa girl, I thought you were supposed to be smart. This guy tries to take advantage of her, but Hardin saves the day, and Tessa, being so thankful, kisses him. She still is with her boyfriend. Don't forget that, because I kept forgetting her boyfriend existed. She's still with him. So that's pretty much the beginning, and that introduces you to a lot of the characters that you need to know. Now I'm really gonna get into the body of the text, which I've split up into 2 parts. The first half, or book 1, and the second half, book 2. I actually believe the movies did this as well. I'm going to go through these following chapters pretty efficiently because honestly everything that happens follows a very similar pattern to what happens in the beginning. That is, Tessa feels weird around Steph and her friends because Steph and friends are bad and Tessa's good. Tessa and Hardin fight, and then he shows her the tiniest sliver of kindness, and she's like,
Hardin, I love you.
So after she kisses Hardin, when Tessa hangs out with her boyfriend Noah, things just don't feel the same anymore. Oh, by the way, Tessa's mother throughout all of this is practically up her ass about getting a car. Tessa and Hardin essentially continue to learn that they are very, very physically attracted to one another. But honestly, in my opinion, it does not and should not extend past that. At one point, Tessa does try to curb this fling going on with Hardin, and she tells him that they can only be friends, and he actually agrees. But this is all ruined in the following chapter when he asks her on a date and she says yes. Sweetie. So this date looks like this. He takes her to his favorite place, which is apparently in the middle of the woods with the river running through it. It's also weird because it's his favorite place, but I don't think it's brought up again in the book after this, so either that was an accident by the author or Hardin's lying. So anyways, they're in the middle of nowhere and Tessa's like, is this guy gonna kill me? Or like... Instead of killing her, Hardin he strips naturally and jumps in the river, and he's like, Tessa. Wait, I should do a British accent. Tessa. Come on, Tessa. No, I can't be naked. No, that's Australian. Put on my shirt, babe. So Tessa does. She strips and puts on a shirt, jumps in, they're going for a swim. Next thing you know, they're canoodling. Then after this happens, Hardin immediately tries to leave, which obviously leaves Tessa feeling used, but he manages to save it by taking her to dinner, and they have like a fairly decent conversation. Fairly decent by their standards, so a normal standard, it's not good, but for their standard, it's decent. But because it's Hardin, he ruins it again by mocking Tessa when she suggests telling her boyfriend Noah about what they did. So they don't talk for a while, and Tessa invites Noah to her dorm so they can hang out. This is where we really start to get an idea of who Noah is and how he is as a boyfriend. He's definitely very sweet, very innocent, and sure, maybe a bit too innocent now that Tessa is a wild girl.
Why did I do it like that?
My point is, he doesn't have any bad qualities. Like, being innocent isn't a bad quality. So I feel like the hand he's dealt in the novel isn't justified. Anyway, a little aside there. While they're hanging out, Tessa tries to go a little farther with him, but Noah declines. And before things get too awkward, she gets a phone call from Landon, and surprise! Him and Hardin are soon to be stepbrothers, and Hardin is not happy about it, and he's throwing a tantrum. Literally, he's throwing things and breaking things. So Landon asks Tessa to come over and help calm him down. So here we learn that Hardin's dad left him and his mother when he was very young, leaving them to fend for themselves. So the idea of his father finding happiness makes him very, very unhappy. After learning all of this, Tessa and Hardin naturally have a very steamy makeout sesh, because what else would you do? It's during this scene that we get this really wonderful line that I find very reminiscent of Twilight. It reads, "Hardin is like a drug. Each time I take the tiniest bit of him, I crave more and more."
It's like a drug to me. Anyway,
She gives Hardin a handy while Noah is literally back in her dorm by himself. Oh yeah, I didn't mention this, but she doesn't have a car, so she borrowed his car to go to Hardin's place to give him a handy.
excuse me, miss.
The next morning, she rushes back to him, and of course, Hardin follows her and eventually forces her to tell Noah what they've been doing. Obviously, Noah is heartbroken. I mean, but I kind of feel like Tessa was let off the hook because he just gets in his car and says, "I need time to think," but he still tells her he loves her. So I don't know. I feel like it could have been a lot worse, but it wasn't. Because of this event, Tessa's very, very angry at Hardin, and they go another week without talking to one another.
Oh shit, here we go again.
Next time they see each other, they both try and make each other jealous by cuddling up with someone else from their friend group. Meanwhile, Noah calls Tessa and forgives her.
Oh shit.
She doesn't even have to explain herself, really. He forgives her and says they're all good as long as it never happens again. I have in my notes fast forwarding. Can I just read this part to you because it's a whole paragraph and I don't feel like trying to memorize what I wrote? Yeah, I'm just gonna read it to you. Are you ready? Tessa finds out Hardin's dad is the chancellor of their university while at dinner with him and his soon-to-be mother-in-law, Karen. Because of course her name is Karen. Hardin gets defensive when his dad asks him why he hasn't told Tessa, and he eventually storms off. Hardin, not his dad. Later, Tessa goes to check on him and they advance canoodle. They advance canoodle with one another. As if she didn't just get back together with Noah. And as if Hardin isn't an overgrown child. Honestly, at this point, their relationship has gone back and forth so many times, it gave me whiplash. That is true. That is true. So she returns to her dorm once more, and surprise, Noah's there again. And surprise, Hardin shows up 2 seconds later. And Noah is heartbroken all over again. Despite this, he can tell that Tessa wants to get away from Hardin because she's mad at him. So he stands up for her and tells Hardin to leave. But then Hardin, all of his emotions and all that good stuff, he admits he has feelings for Tessa, and of course Tessa is like,
I love you.
and so she tells Noah to leave. Oh my god. So just to recap, she first is telling Hardin, "Get away from me, leave." Noah's like, "You cheated on me again, I still love you." Hardin, "Get out of here, get away from her." Hardin says, "I have feelings for you." They both look at Noah and Tessa goes, "Get out of here, Noah." And to make matters worse, she gives Hardin a BJ, and I'm going to force you to listen to what I had to read. Okay? I can feel my eyes widen and hear my own gasp as Hardin's manhood comes into view. Wow, it's big. Wow, it's big. Much bigger than I expected. How am I going to even get it into my mouth? Oh my god. I took a bit of a break. Anyways, we're on to the second half, or book 2. Now that their relationship is back on track, Hardin, or I guess Hardin's father, lands a paid internship at a publishing company for Tessa, which is honestly kind of offensive. I had a job last year and I had to work my butt off to get that job, so the fact that she literally didn't have to do anything, oh my gosh, it makes me so mad. I guess I should mention at this point that Tessa is slowly mending the relationship between Hardin and his dad and his soon-to-be stepmother. She even convinced to attend their wedding. So needless to say, Tessa is loved by Ken, which is Hardin's dad's name. And in this second half, they spend a lot of time with Hardin's parents and everything's happy and nice. But because this is after, of course it doesn't stay like that.
Oh shit.
Later, at yet another party, Tessa walks in and sees Molly sitting on Hardin's lap. Molly is a girl from the friend group that Hardin used to try and make Tessa jealous at one time, cuddling up with someone else from their friend group. So of course she sees this and she's very pissed off. She then goes and has a few drinks, and honestly I can't blame her because I would probably do the same thing. And then she goes back and she joins their game of truth or dare because they're playing truth or dare again for some reason, and she's dared to kiss one of the guys there, and she does it to shove it in Hardin's face because we're mature and that's what we do. And of course Hardin gets really mad, looks at Molly, says truth or dare, she says dare, he says I dare you to kiss me. No, sorry, British accent. I dare you to kiss me. Oh my gosh, no. I dare you to kiss me. So of course they start making out and Tessa gets really upset and storms out of the party, and Hardin follows after her and they get in this explosive argument. When Hardin thinks he's about to lose Tessa, he admits that he loves her in front of everyone. Despite his confession, Tessa and Hardin don't talk again for another week. The only thing that brings them back together is she sees him all beat up and she takes him back to his parents' house after arguing for a bit, because you always gotta argue a little bit. He asks her why he bothers her so much, and Tessa finally admits that she loves him, and that's why it bothers her so much. So she's feeling embarrassed because she thinks he doesn't love her back, and she just admitted to loving him. She wants to leave, and he's like, no, Tessa, I love you too, Tessa. You don't mean it. Yas, Tessa. Yas, Tessa, yas. They start making out, and she finally tells Hardin that she wants to go all the way. Surprisingly, Hardin suggests they wait, and he says he has too much respect for her to have sex with her right then and there, which shocked both her and me as a reader. After this, things are going pretty well. They keep doing their thing, you know, explicit things. Eventually, Tessa's mother, who I'm sure you've forgotten about, I forgot about her too when I was reading. Eventually, she finds out about all of this and she confronts Tessa and Hardin. She tells her if she doesn't break up with him and get back together with Noah, that she'll quit paying her portion of the tuition. Of course, Tessa refuses to break up with Hardin because they told each other they love each other and things are actually looking up for once. And once her mother leaves, Hardin suggests they move in together. Moving on to the next day, Tessa starts her internship at the publishing company, and as you might expect, things go perfectly. She doesn't have any issues, nobody's mean to her, no one has any constructive criticism or suggestions. No, she's perfect. Oh yeah, she drives herself to the internship. She bought a car at some point. I forgot to mention that. Anyways, everything goes swimmingly. She returns back to her dorm, and after 76 chapters and 426 pages, Tessa and Hardin finally go. So I want to talk about this a little bit because since there was so much buildup, I thought for sure the first time would be this huge deal because that's how the novel sets it up. But honestly, like, Hardin was partially drunk, Tessa was not. They had just had a small argument. I don't know, it kind of just seems to come out of nowhere, which is fine and actually probably more realistic, but the book led me to believe that it was going to be this huge romantic movie-like moment, which I get is unrealistic. But that is the expectation the book set. So when that wasn't fulfilled, I kind of felt betrayed. With all that being said, they finish doing their thing, and Tessa removes the sheets from her bed, the bloody sheets from her bed, gives them to Hardin, and Hardin puts them in the back of his car to dispose of. Later, I'm mentioning that detail because it will be important at the end. The next day, Tessa's back at her internship, and Hardin arrives and tries to get down and dirty, which is honestly so disrespectful. So many kids would kill for this kind of internship, and it's given to Tessa, who I'm sure would be a hard worker and do a great job in a different circumstance, but the way things unfolded and how she's treating the internship, honestly, she's kind of offensive. I'm kind of offended. To her credit, though, she does turn him down. Camera overheated. I think I left off with me telling you that they eventually do it in her office. They also eventually move in together, solving the issue with Tessa's mom, and following the usual pattern, things are really starting to look up this time, like really starting to look up. Tessa befriends one of her co-workers. Hardin opens up about the night his dad left. They even attend Hardin's dad's wedding, and at this point we've gone quite a while without Hardin and Tessa fighting. That is until Tessa sees a suspicious text on Hardin's phone. When Tessa asks Hardin about the text message, he tells her not to worry about it, but she is determined to figure out what she thinks he is hiding. This leads us into the conclusion, and guys, I don't think you're ready for this. Even if you've seen the movie, it's even worse than the movie. I mean, it is... Let's just get into it. Tessa tries calling some of Hardin's friends, some of her friends, with no luck. So she drives around and finds some of their cars in the parking lot of a restaurant they all frequent. Hardin wasn't there at first, but he eventually arrives, and things spiral. Turns out, after finding out she was a virgin, Hardin made a bet with his friends that he could be the one to take her virginity.
This is so disgusting.
He kept the condom from the first time they had sex and the bloody sheets to show his friends as proof. My jaw literally dropped when I read that. Like, that is so disgusting and abhorrent. If someone actually did that in real life, hell, here's your one-way ticket. Go ahead. While this is going on, Tessa just stands there and is pretty much made fun of by everyone. Hardin falls to his knees, literally begging her to stay with him or to go back to their home where he can explain things. Tessa responds with, "Home? ? That isn't my home. It never has been. We both know that." Anyway, Hardin watches her leave, and that's it. After 600 pages, there's no resolution. We do get one other chapter of the same events, but from Hardin's perspective. I would have preferred to see another chapter of Tessa trying to figure out life post-Hardin and still end with that sadness deeply rooted, but maybe with a hair of optimism. Like, I don't know what my future holds, but whatever it is, I know it won't have Hardin Scott in it. Or, I don't know, something that somewhat wraps up the ending, but also keeps it open. It was so obvious that the author knew she'd be writing a second book. She had the liberty of doing so, I guess, because she was posting on Wattpad, so
It made me mad.
So, in general, my biggest issue with the characters in this novel is that there's no nuance. They're all good or bad, or it's black and white. There's never any gray. So, for example, the bad kids have lots of tattoos and piercings, and they either wear revealing clothing or all black or both, and they drink and do drugs, and they essentially fit the bad kid archetype to a T, and they do not deviate from it at all. As far as Tessa goes, she starts off as the standard good girl, fits the good girl archetype again to a T. This is overturned in the novel, but I don't think it's as gratifying as it could be because there's little consequence in her life outside of her relationship with Hardin. So her grades never falter. She never struggles at her internship, or she never receives any criticism for her work. A part of me also expected her to be a bit more mature and timid due to her upbringing, which I think could have added some nice tension in her relationship with Hardin in a way that doesn't make you want to slam your head through a wall. I digress. As for Hardin, as far as I'm concerned, he has absolutely no redeemable qualities whatsoever. There's this subtle character arc that I think the author was trying to do with his character, and I think we're supposed to be rooting for him in his relationship with Tessa, but honestly, his cruelty is so severe, I don't want him to be anything other than the villain. Is it the best I've ever read? No. Is it the worst I've ever read? Also no. First and foremost, the first person perspective. This is my favorite perspective to write in, and it's one of my favorite perspectives to read in. That being said, this book is almost too much in Tessa's head. And this is extra complicated because sometimes there's no textual difference between, how do I explain this? I have a bachelor's in English literature. Between, I guess, the present story that she's telling and her present thoughts, which I know doesn't really make sense because it is her thoughts. I have a bachelor's in English. The best example I could find is on page 29. It reads, I shrug, even though it isn't as casual to me. I've never danced that way, not even with Noah, and we have been dating 2 years. Noah, I reach into my purse and check my messages from him. That Noah, exclamation mark, I probably would have italicized just to differentiate it from the surrounding text. Moving on. Another thing I noticed, there's a lot of idioms used. The one that I marked is, my body wants to freeze like a deer in headlights. I'm not saying these can't work, but I personally try to avoid them because they can be informal. I also just personally feel less creative when I use them. I guess that's it for that. That's all I had in my notes. Dialogue. There is some strong dialogue, and I think the author handles multiple characters in one room very well. That's something I'm personally very bad at, so I always admire it when I see it. That being said, there were some parts where I felt like the dialogue fell flat, and unfortunately those parts were usually pivotal parts. Done with what? Effing with my emotions? I hate you. But, not wanting to feed off my rage, I slow down and speak more calmly. You can't end something that never began. I have in my notes, I can just imagine the author writing this, OMG, pacing is all wrong. Personally, what I would do with this is I would probably have a paragraph break between the first quote and the second quote, and I would probably have her ponder a little bit the relationship and what it is and how she feels, just like maybe the smallest paragraph leading up to the realization that she makes. That way it shows a slower progression and a more natural progression instead of something that feels a bit more authorial, because that's how it reads. There were some other things that really bothered me, but I don't want to be nitpicky or anything like that. So that's all I have for the writing. So obviously I went into this with low expectations and a bit of a negative bias, but all in all, it did keep me fairly entertained. Did I want to give up sometimes? Yes, but I would be lying if I said their dumpster fire relationship didn't pique my interest. That all doesn't matter because obviously these books are extremely popular and the author has made absolute bank off of them, which is honestly more than I can say for myself. So, till next time, cuties.